All right, let's get right into it. Have you ever wondered who's really pulling the strings? Who's actually in charge? Well, today we're putting together a cheat sheet for understanding modern power, and we're using a university level governance course as our guide. This is basically your crash course in how the world is really run.
So let's start with that big question. Who runs things? The easy answer, the one we all learn, is the government. But as you can probably guess, the real story is so much more complicated, and honestly, way more interesting than that. Power today isn't just sitting in some fancy government building. It's everywhere. To really get a grip on this, we need to make a little mental shift. We need to stop thinking about government as just a thing, a noun, and start thinking about governance as a process, an action. Think of governance like the operating system for our society, right? It's not just about who's in the driver's seat, it's the entire system, the rules of the road, the traffic signals, the customs, the networks that determines how we all get where we're going. It's the whole process of making decisions and, crucially, seeing them through. This slide really breaks it down perfectly. Over on the left, you've got government. Those are the actors, the players on the field, the formal institutions. But on the right, you've got governance. That's the whole game. The rulebook, the referees, the unwritten rules, the entire process of how the game is actually played. So government is the what, but governance is the how. Okay, so if the government isn't the only player on the field anymore, who else is out there? Who are these other major figures that are shaping the game? Let's take a look. And here they are. These are the so-called non-state actors, and their influence is just massive. Think about it. A huge corporation can change the global economy. A determined NGO can completely shift the public conversation on something like climate change. A media outlet shapes what we think and talk about every single day. And of course, international bodies set rules that even the most powerful countries have to follow. This quote really hits the nail on the head. It's not just that new players have shown up. It's that the original players, like government bureaucracy, are being forced to completely change how they operate. They can't just work in a bubble anymore. They've got to deal with global markets, international agreements, and a world where information moves at the speed of light. The game has totally changed for everyone involved. Now, this new reality, this idea of governance, isn't just for countries. It also applies to those powerful non-state actors we were just talking about. So let's zoom in on one of the most powerful of them all, the corporation. Every single major company has its own internal set of rules, its own governance. And you might be thinking, okay, who cares about a company's internal rules? Well, we all should, because it affects everything, from the safety of the products we buy to a company's impact on the environment. So how do you keep all that corporate power in check? Well, it really comes down to these 4 key principles. Accountability means you have to answer for your actions. Fairness is about protecting everyone with a stake in the company, not just the big shots. Transparency means you can't hide what you're doing. And responsibility is the moral compass that should be guiding the whole thing. Okay, so we've looked at the global system and the corporate boardroom, but what about power on a local level? Let's bring this all the way down from the skyscraper to the town square, because governance can also be a tool to directly empower regular citizens. And this isn't just a nice idea. It's happening in the real world. This slide shows a fantastic example. Systems like the Panchayati Raj in India are specifically designed to push power down, to move it away from some distant capital city and into the hands of local communities who are actually affected by decisions about their schools, their water, their roads. So how do you actually make that local power real? Well, you give people tools like these. A citizen report card literally lets people grade the performance of public services. A social audit lets the community comb through the local budget. These things transform governance from a top-down command into a real two-way conversation. So we've got governments, we've got giant corporations, we've got empowered citizens, all interacting in this incredibly complex system. With so many different interests clashing, how do you keep the whole thing fair and honest? How do you keep it from falling apart? The first absolute must-have is transparency. Think of it as letting the light in. It's this simple but powerful idea that if a decision affects you, you have a right to know how and why that decision was made. It's about dragging decisions out from behind closed doors and into the open. But transparency on its own isn't enough. If transparency is about seeing what happened, accountability is about what happens next. It's the crucial follow-up. It means the people who made the decision have to take responsibility for the results, whether they're good or bad.
Without accountability, transparency is just information with no teeth. And these are the things that give the system its teeth. These are the practical safeguards that make transparency and accountability real. Right to information laws give you the power to demand documents. Independent audits provide an unbiased look at the finances. And whistleblower protection gives insiders the courage to expose wrongdoing. These are the safety nets that keep the system honest.
Which brings us to our final and maybe most important question. In this new world, power isn't in one place anymore. It's spread out across this huge network of governments, corporations, NGOs, and citizens. So when things inevitably go wrong, who is ultimately responsible? In this new age of governance, figuring that out is the biggest challenge we all face.